The plot twists are simply amazing and sometimes unimaginable. I mean, just, wow, this is so great. One Piece Chapter 346, The Ninth Justice. Holy shit, the hits just keep on coming! Let me center myself. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and just, I can't even think of words to describe the tale of One Piece. Just, man, just the backstabbing and the mystery and the intrigue and the surprise. Oh, you didn't know this? Didn't see this coming, did you? Holy hell. The last chapter was a bomb laid out on all of us, and we found out, albeit at the end of the chapter, that actually Khalifa, as well as Rob, Lucci, and Kaku had all been working with Bluno. They're all part of the CP9 or whatever, and and they've been working undercover for, we presume, years to try to get these blueprints out of Iceberg or find out the whereabouts to them. So that's how the chapter left off, and really this chapter picks up right there. We get some background information about CP9, which is great. Apparently there is a CP 1 through 8 stationed at 8 different key locations or bases around the world, and these are pretty much like intelligence agencies. I'm assuming similar to like a CIA or something like that for here in the States. Probably Interpol, obviously, if you're across the pond there. And anyway, pretty much every government has some kind of underground or undercover type of security that goes and looks into potential threats, things like that. So there's so much stuff that's going on behind the scenes that honestly you probably wouldn't believe half of it if you heard it, and half of what they tell you is actually bullshit and lies anyway. But nonetheless, though, that's how the chapter had obviously left off, and then picking up with them explaining this. They're CP9, which Iceberg has never heard of, right? And they're like, the reason that you've never heard of us is because we're like deep cover intelligence. Like, we don't exist, okay? We're Black Ops agents, man. We do not exist. I'm sure it's the type of thing, if they ever get captured or tortured or anything like that, that the government would deny their existence. And really it's because they can deem it necessary to operate outside of the laws of the world government, and they can take a civilian, and if they feel it's necessary or that they're impeding their investigation or whatever it is they're looking for, they can kill them. They can take a life, right? So they have justification to take a life if they want to, and that's really what got me. And an Iceberg is like, there's never any justification for taking a life. Nonetheless, though, 5 years they've been working undercover, and they're like, don't worry, we took our regular job seriously, So, I mean, neat stuff to find that out, right? 5 years these fuckers were undercover looking for these blueprints for this Pluton. So then we go and we wind up seeing, and this is kind of cool, during the course of the chapter, if you remember a couple chapters back, Zoro and Nami and Chopper were heading in, and of course having to get past all the shipwrights, the kind of regular red shirts, I guess you'd call them. Zoro was whacking them, hitting them on the backs of the heads and what have you, with the back of his sword just to knock them unconscious. So we kind of check in with them, and they're now in the mansion. Everybody's laid out as Zoro's just running through, just nailing people, playing whack-a-mole with his swords, right? And they're fighting about which way to go between Nami and Chopper, but nonetheless, we know that they're on the way there, right? Then we go and we see Luffy, and if you remember, Luffy and Paulie kind of made that alliance at the end of last chapter, or towards the end of last chapter, but we're going to kick some ass together and take names. Luffy is able to actually manages to go and squeeze his head out, right? Which is kind of weird because it seems like everything of his body is rubber except for his head. His head doesn't seem to have as much elasticity to it, at least it hasn't in the chapters that I've seen thus far. But anyway, he's able to go and squeeze out, and he's like, oh, I was able to squeeze out, I'm rubber. So then Paul's like, okay, free me. So we check in with them, and we know obviously Luffy's going to free him, and they're going to go and try to converge on the room. While this is all happening, it goes back to the meat of the chapter, the meat and potatoes, as I like to call it. And that part of the chapter is great because not only does CP9, have they described how long they've been undercover, what they're there for, and everything else, they go and they're able to, Lucci is actually able to go and he starts to go and make a theory. First of all, he's talking with Iceberg, and Iceberg winds up telling him something to the effect of, and he says, boy, at the end of it. And Lucci doesn't like that, man. He just, BAM! Just nails him, just a foot right through a face. And then tells him to go over and check his pulse. I don't know if it's Kaku or if it's Khalifa, whatever. Somebody goes over to check his pulse. He goes, and here's the thing. We have this theory, right? And he goes and breaks everything down, and he's like, in the years that we've been here, he goes, first of all, we'll look at these blueprints, which you say are fake, right? these might, you know, might be passed off to somebody else, and they might have fallen for the lie, so to speak. But it says right on here, you know, Tom so-and-so, which was the great builder that built these things, right? And it's got these different names of the people on there and his actual workers and everything else. But they're like, we've checked the register, the backlog, and there's no register of their existence or anything else. But we did find out several years ago that you were one of only 2 apprentices of this shipbuilder, this great shipbuilder Tom that built this, you know. So and from what we found out, or at least from what we've been told, 8 years ago, the other person wound up actually getting, what his name is, Cutty? Something Cutty, I forget, was the name over here, if I remember correctly. Damn it. And erasing pulse. Yeah, okay, there we go. Blah, blah, blah. That was the only time that they gave his real name. Okay, there we go. I forget. Oh, yeah, Cutty Flam. God, I'm so sorry. I forgot that. Anyway, so Cutty Flam, there's just a lot going on this last couple of chapters here, man, and I am just my head spinning. So Cutty Flam was the other apprentice, right? And he supposedly died 8 years ago, right? But they think that that was just a cover-up because they remember from being here for the last 5 years that about 4 years ago there was someone on the island that wound up walking through the front gates and actually gave their real name of Cutty Flam, right? That's what they say anyway, you know? So they go and they wind up going and putting 2 and 2 together and realizing that Cutty Flam is none other than Franky the cyborg, right? So they piece this together, and again, this is just a theory in there, but they're checking his pulse to see if his pulse starts racing, because then you know that obviously he's getting nervous, right? So they go and deduce that by having Franky be close to him but yet far away, he's obviously the ship dismantler, so he goes and brings them materials and wood and everything else, right? That he'd be able to have that access easy in and out and whatnot to meet up with him. And they believe that Iceberg already gave the plans to Franky, right? The blueprints to Franky for this great weapon of Pluton. And prior to that, when they were arguing about everything, they're just like, their whole thought is we work for the government, and the government is good. And if we have this weapon, this ship, right, we'll be able to stop piracy, be able to stop all these pirates from harming people. And Iceberg's thing is you don't understand, man. Even people who say they're not evil or who inherently aren't evil, people will go, there'll be a war, they'll be fighting over who can control that ship. And because he's like, oh, you don't trust the government? It doesn't matter if you trust the government. If you have something that powerful, chances are there's going to be people that are going to try to take that power. They're going to try to come in and take that power by force if necessary. So what he's saying is that it doesn't matter. It's just going to cause more issues, more wars, more death, right? And that's kind of where that whole thing came from. Then he wound up saying, you know, you don't understand, boy, you know, to Rob Lucci, and Robin kicked him. But he gives him this whole theory breakdown, right? And does the whole thing about Franky, and he's actually this Cutty Flam, and it's really ingenious when you think about it, man. That's what I like about this. The plot twists are just freaking awesome, you know? So and then they can tell by his pulse quickening and everything else and everything he's been through that they must be onto him, you know, that they've got the right theory going here, right? So they go and they're, of course, it looks like they're going to get to the point where they're just going to do away with Iceberg, kill him, whatever. While this is happening, you've got Zoro and Nami and Chopper converging on the room. They see that that's the room, that's his office, there's a bedroom or whatever, you know. And Zoro, cut down the door, you know, this and that, and okay. And then you go and you see Paulie and Luffy go and break into another room, and he's like, no, you idiot, I told you, it's not this room, it's the one next door. The whole chapter and the whole volume, though, culminates and ends, right, with what I just thought this was cool how it was done, you know. First you go and you see the actual door, and all of a sudden you see a you know, and you can assume that's probably Zoro, right, on the door. And then all hell breaks loose as everybody converges on the room at once. Now, mind you, you don't got Sanji there, so you're a little bit weaker as far as a team, but you got Chopper, you got Zoro, who's a beast, you got Luffy, and then you go and you got Nami, of course. She's going to be there for, you know, for TNA and for a little comic relief. She'll probably think of a good plan to help him get out of things once the shit hits the fan. But and they all converge on the room at the same time. And then, of course, you have Paulie, the rope man, you know, so. Oh my god, is that an awesome way to end things off over here. And that's how the volume ends. And I'm just so excited to dive into the next one, because I know that, you know, I got a feeling that somehow they're going to find a way to escape in this net. But I'm hoping there's going to be some great fights between some of these CP9 guys. And, of course, you know, Paulie and Luffy and Zoro and Chopper, you know. And then Sanji hasn't been seen in like 10 chapters. So who knows where he is, or if he's just going to come upon some things. Who knows if he's, because you got to remember, Franky was having his guys run around town several chapters ago saying that they had Usopp and they captured him. That's what he was going to do. So maybe Sanji's going to go help out Usopp. Maybe Sanji's going to run across Franky and there's going to be a fight between them. I have no idea, man. I don't even know what to expect or predict at this point, because if I do, it's probably going to be wrong, you know? Whew! All right. Chapter question, though, brothers and sisters. Chapter question is ultimately, what are your thoughts on the weapon Pluton and what they were kind of discussing and explaining about? What thought camp are you in? Are you in the camp of, hey, a great weapon like this, if controlled properly, could be of benefit to people? Or are you in the Iceberg camp of, hey, you know what? With great power comes great responsibility, and nobody should have that great of a power, you know? So let me know what your answer to that question is in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next one, nation. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and even my other channel.